a market. That's what they've done, and he doesn't like it. In fact, he's furious. He made a whip. He made a whip. And then he opens the pens. Oxen are big. You hit an oxen with the whip, it's going to run over somebody. He's mad. He's driving these huge animals around inside the temple and the sheep, bleeding in between them and cutting loose all the pigeons. They're flying around. He's not calm. He's very angry. And when the disciples see it, they connect it with Psalm 69:9, which is quoted here. Zeal, is what the verse says in the psalm, zeal for your house has consumed me, and the reproaches of those who reproach you have fallen on me. So Jesus is consumed with zeal for his Father's house, and no doubt reproaches were raining down like, what in God's name are you doing, fella? So this verse is coming true. He is filling up the meaning of what David said about his own zeal and his own reproaches. What made him so angry? The contrast that he points out is between my Father's house, and a marketplace. My Father's house means this house is about knowing and loving and fellowshipping with a person, my Father. This house, this court, this place is about knowing and loving and communing with and enjoying and speaking to and hearing from my Father, a person. A day in your courts is better than 1,000 elsewhere. Whom have I in heaven but you, and on earth there is nothing that I desire besides you. My flesh and my heart may faint, but you are the strength of my heart and my portion forever. These are the affections that well up inside the worshiper in the house, in the courts of God. But that focus has been replaced with trade, a focus on trade. And there is no reference here to the poor folks who are buying the animals. They don't get any criticism here, at least not explicitly. The people who get criticism are the money changers and the sellers. That's who his anger seems to be directed at. They are selling, they're handling, they're planning, they're positioning, they're changing currency, they're sitting around. They are creating the atmosphere. Instead of doing it outside the temple, some appropriate place outside of the temple, they're doing it right in the place where the cultivation of a sweet fellowship with the living God should be happening. And Jesus is angry about that. So what did he see inside these men? It says down in verse 25, we're going to go to this next week, Lord willing. Look at the end of verse 25. He himself knew what was in man. So Jesus, like radar vision, looks at all the sellers and all the money changers. What did he see? He saw that this bazaar, this emporium, was not advancing communion with God. Wasn't helping people know his heavenly Father. It was not flowing from love of God. It was flowing from the love of money. That's what he saw. And what made it worse is that religious ritual, a vaunted helpfulness, was covering covetousness and greed. Sound familiar? Aren't you tired of it? I am so sick of it. Petters for the Protestants, Madoff for the Jews, Slatkin for the Scientologists, Adelaide for the Charismatics. Ponzi after Ponzi after Ponzi with a religious veneer. I'm sick of it. I think if I were not a Christian, I would just check out. Thank you for showing up tonight anyway. You are amazing. Jesus was furious. Not just because they were covetous, but because they cloaked it the way they did. And they used the system of religion the way they did. What he saw was hypocrisy. Religion as a front for greed. Empty forms of loving God plastering over an insatiable love of money. Jesus boils when he sees godliness as a covering for gain. Now, he made this really clear. The reason I'm camping on this is because Jesus did repeatedly. This is not an isolated affair, what's going on here. Jesus, with his radar vision, he knew what was in men. He saw right into the legalism of the Pharisees and the scribes and the priests, right through their legalism to their root love of money. Listen to this. This is Luke 16:13. No servant can serve two masters. Either he will hate the one and love the other, or he will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and money. And then Luke comments, the Pharisees, who were lovers of money, heard all these things and ridiculed him. That's another form of hypocrisy. Shoot the messenger of truth and conviction and rescue yourself with ridicule. People do it all the time. I've tasted it. You can hear the zeal of Jesus burning in Matthew 23:25. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! You clean the outside of the cup and plate, but inside you are full of greed. This is such a loving affair here in the temple. It is so loving. We are loving people. We Ponzi beneficiaries and benefactors. We love people. You put up a fine display of religious helpfulness in the temple bazaar, and you are driven by the love of money. And oh, how sophisticated it gets. It gets so unbelievably sophisticated. Only Jesus can get through it, it seems like. Or recession. But Jesus can get through it anytime. Listen to this one. This is Mark 7. You have a fine way, Jesus says, of rejecting the commandment of God in order to establish your tradition. For Moses said, honor your father and your mother, and whoever reviles mother or father should surely die. But you say, if a man tells his father or mother, whatever you would have gained from me is korban, that is, given to God, you no longer permit him to do anything for his mother or father.